Boosie, he ran out for my money.
I needed to talk to Lil Boosie about my money. Our business is still not finished.
You mentioned Boosie going to the federal penitentiary in California.
I guarantee you, if a nigga bust them doors open, the first Hoover nigga that I know that know me, that know anything about me, gonna be asking about my violence. I can guarantee you that.
I ain't worried about nothing. So you going to jail? For sure. Yeah, all right. I ain't going to jail.
Before anything else, OG Gumby made it clear this wasn't some random misunderstanding. This was unfinished business, and he wanted the whole world to know his side straight from his own mouth. He spoke with that heavy pressure in his voice, the kind that tells you something has been brewing for a long time and finally spilled over. Instead of easing into it, he jumped right into the heat. I got my own issue with Boosie on Hoover, like you already heard about it before. That line alone showed he wasn't holding back anymore. He said this whole situation wasn't just street talk, it was tied to West Side Hoover and to the federal penitentiary area where his homeboys were waiting to hear how the truth really sounded. Gumby said someone was supposed to step up, not hide, not duck, but actually speak on what happened because he wasn't about to carry the blame for a deal he said was crooked from the jump. He made it plain that he needed his money, and the energy behind that statement told you this wasn't an empty demand. It was overdue. When he brought up Boosie heading to the federal yard in California, Gumby made a strong claim. He said once those doors opened, the first Hoover who recognized him would step up before anything else happened. He said nobody inside ever acted like they didn't know his name, so he wasn't about to let anybody on the outside pretend otherwise either. Then came the real spark. Gumby said the business wasn't handled right, and he took a $52,000 loss from a concert that never went down. He didn't mince words when he said he needed that money back, and the frustration in his tone sounded like someone pushed the wrong button for too long. "You shot's great, but you shot late high 11, he shouted, sending his own sharp line back into the mix like a warning shot with no aim to miss. That's when the Rundown podcast slid into the story, ready to break the whole situation apart piece by piece with their usual raw energy. Once they said, "All right, I'm gonna give you the rundown," the tension around the story shot up even higher. They opened with a street saying, "Two mountains never meet, but two gangsters always will." And that matched the situation perfectly because this whole mess started when Southern rap artist Badazz crossed paths with Los Angeles Hoover figure OG Gumby over a business deal that went sideways fast.
On Hoover, we need to address that. Now, mind you, this is a concert with Lil Boosie and 200 Hoovers. I have a personal problem with this man. And it wasn't even a problem with Lil Boosie, it was a problem with his management, which is his brother TQ. And just like he see him on TV, he cocky. Oh, but see, he didn't understand. You're in the building with 200 Hoovers. And I'm Gumby, Hoover. Ain't no Boosie Badazz in here. Gumby Badazz. Hoover though.
According to Gumby, he didn't even start the deal with Boosie himself. It was Boosie's brother TQ who handled everything. Gumby said TQ took the money he put up to bring Boosie to the show he was promoting. But the artist never showed, the situation collapsed, and the money never came back. And that moment was where the tension officially started boiling. OG Gumby said the situation reached a whole different level that night because he claimed there were 200 Hoovers inside that venue, plus even more people tied to different sets watching how everything unfolded. He said him and the Hoovers put Boosie in the green room and pressed him hard about the money that was supposed to come through from Boosie's brother TQ, the one who originally handled the deal. Gumby even admitted he knew Boosie wasn't the mastermind behind all this, but he still needed to face the questions because the money trail led right back to his own family. Gumby said he had solid proof that Boosie's brother was the reason the whole mess blew up, that TQ took the bread and disappeared before the show ever happened. He said Boosie was talking about back-end money, Jay-Z, Live Nation, and all kinds of extra business, but none of it connected to him because he wasn't the one blocking the payment in the first place.
Lil Boosie, he going off for Hoover. Like, he want his back end. I had to ask somebody, what the fuck this nigga talking about his back end? I thought once I paid, I didn't know. I'm naive to the whole little script. So they telling me what he's talking about, but that don't have anything to do with me. You talking about Jay-Z and Live Nation and your back end. I don't know nothing about that. But I do know about your brother TQ stealing my mother money.
Gumby insisted he had nothing to do with those big company names Boosie kept mentioning, and he said all the confusion started because the real person responsible, TQ, never showed up to explain anything. OG Gumby made it sound like he got left holding the bag while the brother vanished into thin air. He said TQ never pulled up to the concert, never checked in, never gave him a chance to talk to Groove about what happened with the money, and that left Boosie trapped in the middle with no protection and no answers. And with over 200 Hoovers in that building, Gumby said the room was full of tension from the second the show started. Then Gumby described the moment everything clicked for him. He said he needed to talk to Lil Boy about the whole situation because he started seeing Boosie's mother's Instagram lighting up, and he saw Lil Boosie going off online about wanting his back-end money. Gumby said he had to ask somebody what his back-end even meant because he didn't understand that part of the business at all. He said he was new to that side of the setup and didn't know anything about back-end payments, Jay-Z, Live Nation, or the industry politics Boosie kept bringing up. But Gumby said he did understand something real clear. Your brother TQ stealing my mother money on Hoover. He said that was the only part that mattered to him and he wanted it addressed right then. He said the concert itself was a Lil Boosie event with 200 Hoovers in the house, and his issue wasn't even with Boosie personally. The real problem was with his management, the same brother who handled everything from the start. Gumby described TQ the same way Boosie showed him on TV. The attitude, the confidence, the energy, but he said all that didn't matter once they were inside that building full of Hoovers.
So, in his defense on Hoover, he was outnumbered. We're in the green room, and I think like the road manager. But at the end of the day, on Hoover though, when Groove was allowed to leave up out of the room, I need my bread. I don't give a fuck, give it to me.
Gumby said Boosie didn't realize he walked into a room where the numbers were stacked against him and where the energy wasn't in his favor. He said, "Ain't no Bowie badass in here, Gumby badass." And that line showed exactly how he felt that night. He even said in Boosie's defense, he was outnumbered from every angle, surrounded by people who wanted answers about money that never made it to the right hands. The whole night turned into a situation Boosie was never prepared for. OG Gumby said that green room felt like a pressure cooker the moment everybody stepped inside. He remembered the road manager standing there trying to keep things calm, but the tension was already past the point of return. Gumby said the second Grove walked out of that room, his patience disappeared. He wanted his bread right then. No waiting, no stalling, no dodging at all. Gumby explained that the wildest twist came when Boosie finally realized what had really been going on behind his back. He said Boosie learned straight through that confrontation, not through a phone call, not through his team, that his own brother TQ had been taking money without telling him. Gumby said Boosie looked shocked because this wasn't something he ever expected to hear in that environment with all eyes on him. Gumby said because he was the one who exposed the truth, he felt Boosie should have at least recognized the fact that this situation opened his eyes. He believed Boosie would have stayed in the dark forever if the money trouble hadn't forced everything out. Gumby said the stolen cash didn't just hurt him, it threw off the entire concert setup and caused Boosie to miss some of his own payment too, which only made the tension even uglier. He talked about how the fallout didn't stop once they left the venue. Gumby said the financial mess created so much confusion that Boosie eventually turned around and took legal action against TQ. The situation went from a simple show booking to a full-blown family issue, all tied back to money that never made it where it was supposed to go. After Gumby's first interview on Real Toon TV, Toon brought him back again to get an update because the story wasn't cooling off. In that second sit-down, Toon asked him straight up about the missing $52,000 Gumby said was still owed to him. That's when Gumby delivered another twist that turned the heat back up. He explained that by this time, he already knew Boosie was heading to the federal penitentiary, and that changed the whole tone of the situation. Gumby said once he heard where Boosie was going, he put the word out to Hoover members who were already on the inside so they understood the backstory before Boosie even arrived. According to Gumby, the plan wasn't about confrontation. It was about finally getting answers he had been chasing for too long.
I got my whole own issue with Boosie on Hoover. Like y'all already heard about it before on Real Tune on Hoover. I need my hooves on Westside Hoover. Niggas supposed to be going to the federal penitentiary area where my homeboys is at on Hoover. But they go one way or another. Nigga gonna meet me. Nigga gonna have to speak up for what they supposed to speak up on Hoover. Nigga, I need my money. TK, TQ, whoever that was in your inbox. What's the name?
Oh, the Boosie's brother.
I don't give a f. I need my money. Talking about slandering you, bitch. I don't gotta do none of that. I need my bread. You did some whole bad business. They try to make it seem like, oh, some janky promoter or some other bullshit. No, your brother ran off with my money, Boosie.
He said once those cell doors opened and Boosie stepped onto that yard, the Hoovers there were prepared to ask him directly about the money confusion and where things stood. Gumby described it like everything was already lined up. The questions, the conversations, the explanations, all waiting for Boosie the moment those gates locked behind him. He said Boosie wasn't walking into chaos, but he was walking into a place where the truth couldn't be avoided anymore. OG Gumby said he couldn't predict exactly how Boosie would be treated once he walked into that federal yard, but he was confident about one thing. The moment those doors cracked open, the first Hoover who recognized his name would ask about the whole situation on site. He said that conversation was guaranteed. No hesitation, no guessing, because this wasn't some small disagreement. This was unfinished business tied to real money. Gumby repeated that he had his own issue with Boosie tied to Hoover matters, and people had already heard pieces of it floating around. He said on Westside Hoover, there were homeboys waiting who wanted clarity, and if Boosie ended up in the same facility, the questions would come quick. According to him, nobody was going to be able to dodge that talk. Not Boosie, not TQ, not anybody tied to the deal. He said the money situation didn't change just because people tried to spin the story differently. Gumby mentioned hearing excuses from different directions. Talk about slander, talk about promoters, talk about confusion, but he brushed all that off because in his words, the real issue was simple. Somebody ran off with the bread and that needed to be addressed right away. He said, whoever, Boosie's brother, I need my money, and made it clear he didn't need drama or internet noise. He needed the truth and the payment that never came in. Gumby claimed he didn't try to ruin anybody's name, didn't try to spread lies, didn't try to do anything extra. He simply wanted the money that came up missing after the concert was booked. Gumby said he didn't personally know Boosie at the time and had no issues with him as a person. Back then, he was busy running concerts, putting shows together, and working with different artists. He said he had other acts in the building that night and still took time out to explain the situation face to face because the missing money was tied directly to the deal Boosie's brother coordinated. He switched tone for a moment to send love to someone he mentioned. I seen you. What I'm saying, I like all your man. Keep struggling. Love you, man. He gave that quick support, then jumped right back into the main storyline like nothing paused. He said that night wasn't supposed to turn chaotic. He literally missed parts of his own concert because he had to break down what happened with the money. He said he had to explain every detail to Boosie. Not to argue, but so Boosie knew exactly why the energy in the building was so tense. Once Boosie realized the truth about his own team, Gumby said everything shifted. He said Boosie looked like someone just pulled the curtain back and showed him something he never expected. Gumby said Boosie figured out the issue wasn't random. It was coming from inside his own circle, and the missing money put him in a dangerous position without him even knowing it. That same night, according to Gumby, Boosie went straight to Instagram and said, I don't got no manager. Book me at Boosie.com, because he finally understood what had happened behind the scenes. Gumby said Boosie posted that after realizing he had been placed in a bad spot, a room full of Hoovers demanding answers because someone close to him mishandled business. Gumby then described how uneven the room was. He said Boosie walked in with only a small group. His road manager, the dude from Grape Street, who was supposed to be security, and one other person, while the building held around 200 Hoovers ready to hear the truth. Gumby said no matter how confident Boosie acted, the numbers alone made the atmosphere heavy, and everyone in that building knew exactly why the energy shifted that night. In Gumby's words, it wasn't about fear, it was about accountability. And the room was filled with people waiting for explanations that finally came out. OG. Gumby said straight up that Boosie was not in a position anybody would want to be in once the truth finally hit him. He said after all the yelling and tension died down, the two of them were able to talk man to man, and that's when he laid everything out plain as day. Gumby said he showed Grove the proof right in his face, the evidence that his own brother took the money that was supposed to be part of the deal. He said once Boosie saw that, the whole situation finally made sense to him. Gumby explained that this moment was what pushed Boosie to say, "I don't got no manager," and eventually filed that lawsuit against his brother for $500,000. He said Boosie realized somebody close to him had put him in a bad spot, and now he had to clean it up publicly. But Gumby also made it clear that while Boosie handled his own situation, that didn't fix Gumby's loss. "I'm still out $52,000. I need my bread from somebody," he said with full emphasis. He wanted to shut down another rumor too. Gumby said he didn't have anything to do with anyone getting hurt or jumped, and he didn't plan anything like that. He said he was just addressing things now because time always brings the truth back around. According to him, you can't do someone wrong and expect it to disappear forever, especially if the person you wronged is still alive and still fighting for what's his. Gumby added that he never once spoke to Boosie's brother directly. No messages, no calls, no deals. He said he didn't even know the man personally. All his communication went through Boosie, and that's where the frustration came from. Gumby said he was trying to put together a solid concert, and he trusted the people he was dealing with, but all the details about the stolen money came from other folks passing information back and forth. He said it felt like he was left carrying the entire situation by himself, even though multiple people were involved behind the scenes. Gumby said from his perspective, he was the only one who lost real money out of the entire mess, and that's why he kept stressing, "I need my bread." He said he tried to keep everything solid and respectful, but the way things played out left him stuck trying to recover from a major loss with nobody stepping up to fix it. Gumby said the whole situation was third-party chaos, but the impact landed directly on him, and he refuses to let that slide quietly. Boosie finally spoke on everything OG Gumby had been saying, and the timing had everybody watching closely. Gumby had already made it clear that he wasn't picky about who paid him back. If TQ took the money, TQ could return it, and if Boosie was the face of the event, then Boosie could fix it too. Gumby said he just wanted his debt handled, and he wasn't letting the situation fade away quietly. When Boosie was asked how he felt about the time he might have to serve in federal prison, he answered with full confidence. He said he wasn't stressed, wasn't scared, and wasn't letting the situation shake him at all. People couldn't ignore how bold that sounded, especially since OG Gumby's message was already out in the open before Boosie did that quick interview. Then Boosie added even more heat by saying, "I'm not going to jail," making it clear he didn't want any negative predictions hovering around him. That line made fans think he must have already heard Gumby's comments and wanted to send a subtle message back, showing he wasn't letting anything, legal trouble or street drama, get in his head. OG Gumby had already explained why he wasn't letting the situation slide. He took a real financial hit and said the $52,000 loss came from money he was given to put on the show. When the concert fell apart, the responsibility landed on him. Not Boosie, not the label, not anyone else. And he said he wasn't willing to eat that loss without answers. Gumby also said something heavy. If he was the one who showed Boosie his own brother had taken a huge amount from him, then Boosie should have made sure Gumby's situation was fixed too. He felt that was the fair thing to do because he exposed a bigger problem Boosie didn't see coming. Boosie accused TQ of mishandling funds and putting him in a bad position, but Gumby said none of that helped him recover what he lost. He said he wasn't trying to disrespect Boosie, wasn't creating lies, and wasn't trying to spark unnecessary drama. He was simply speaking on what happened and what he was still owed. Gumby said even when TQ started sending messages about legal threats, it didn't bother him at all. He said, "Do what you need to do. I need my bread," letting everyone know he wasn't backing away from the situation 1 inch. OG Gumby explained that the money he used wasn't random business cash. It was funding the state gave him specifically to run concerts. He said he kept every record, every document, and every receipt because he understood how serious that responsibility was. Gumby said he wasn't the kind of person who rushed into courtrooms or called law enforcement, especially after everything he had been through in life, so he believed the issue could be handled between men without bringing outside pressure. He said he waited and waited for someone to contact him, but the silence never broke. That pushed him to say, "Now you gotta go where I got people that can be right next to you," meaning he wasn't going to let things slide when real money was missing. Gumby said if nobody wanted to speak up, he was ready to take the matter somewhere it couldn't be avoided. Meanwhile, Boosie shocked people with the confidence in his interview. He talked like he wasn't facing any time at all and made it sound like the situation was already handled. The strange part was that the public had just heard reports about him signing a plea deal. So when he said, "I'm not going to jail," it made everyone wonder if he knew details the public hadn't heard yet. Boosie's tone suggested he had information about his case that wasn't fully released. Since the terms of his plea deal still weren't public, people began questioning whether something changed behind the scenes or whether Boosie was staying positive before turning himself in. Either way, the timing of his comments added even more confusion to the situation. OG Gumby also wanted to make something clear about the night inside the green room. He said Boosie didn't fold when him and 200 Hoovers pressed him about the missing money. Gumby described Boosie as surprised but not scared, especially once he learned his brother had been taking money behind his back. According to Gumby, the shocked look on Boosie's face wasn't fear of the crowd, it was disbelief that someone in his own family had caused the entire mess. Gumby said Boosie looked like he couldn't believe he had been blindsided by something he never saw coming. That reaction changed the tone in the room because it became obvious that Boosie didn't know what his brother was doing behind the scenes. Gumby said that moment shifted everything because now everyone understood the issue wasn't about disrespect, it was about hidden business that finally came to light. OG Gumby said that night was the very first time Boosie ever learned anything about his brother mishandling money, and the shock hit him hard. Gumby explained that this discovery is what pushed Boosie to fire his brother immediately, because he finally realized somebody close to him had put him in a dangerous situation without warning. Gumby said once the truth came out, him and Boosie talked directly, and that conversation is what allowed Boosie to walk out of that room safely. According to Gumby, they agreed that things would be made right and even exchanged contact information so they could handle business later on. He said Boosie promised they would fix the situation, and Gumby believed they were on the same page at that moment. Gumby also mentioned that after the confrontation, he and Boosie even went on stage together and performed a duet in front of everybody. He said the energy on stage made it seem like everything had been handled, but behind the scenes, the payment situation never got resolved. Gumby said the business was still unfinished because the money he lost was never returned. He described how he caught Boosie's attention in that room and explained calmly what happened, showing him the bank account and the missing funds. Gumby said Boosie agreed right away that he never received that money and admitted his brother TQ had caused the entire problem. Gumby said Boosie told him they would do business together and fix the situation, which is why they ended up performing together that same night. But even with the performance, the agreement, and the conversation, Gumby said one thing never changed. "I lost $52,000 in that concert, and I need my money." He said the performance didn't replace the financial hit, and the promises never turned into real action. A lot of people on the internet claim Gumby is exaggerating or trying to stir up attention, but he rejected all of that. He said he wasn't on the internet wooing or inventing stories. He was talking about what actually happened. Gumby said people keep acting like Boosie will never pay him anything, but they forget he already claimed he confronted Boosie face to face. According to Gumby, the confrontation in that green room wasn't made up. He said him and more than 200 Hoovers were there that night, and Boosie had to answer for what happened because he was the only one in the room who could explain where the money went. A lot of people online started questioning the entire situation, pointing out something that didn't make sense to them. They said, "How did you have over 200 Hoovers in the building and Boosie still walked out without paying the money?" To outsiders, the numbers looked wild. A huge crowd on one side and Boosie with only a few people on the other, yet the debt still wasn't handled. Folks kept saying it sounded unbelievable, and they couldn't understand how someone outnumbered like that still didn't fold. OG Gumby, however, didn't slow down or back away from anything. He said in interviews that this situation wasn't over and that he planned to have manpower everywhere Boosie ended up. According to him, no matter which federal penitentiary Boosie got assigned to, there would be Hoovers on the inside who already knew the story and were prepared to ask questions about the missing money. Gumby made it sound like the matter would follow Boosie until it was finally resolved. Meanwhile, people pointed out that Boosie had far bigger problems to worry about than an old financial dispute. He was preparing to turn himself in on November 21st for his federal sentencing, a situation heavy enough on its own. And on top of that, his son Little Tootie Raw was also facing a major federal case after being caught with a switch, which automatically brings serious consequences. Seeing both the father and the son possibly facing time at the same moment made the entire situation more complicated. People online kept saying Boosie didn't have the mental space to worry about OG Gumby right now. not with court dates, lawyers, and family issues all hitting him at once. To many watchers, the money dispute felt small compared to the reality Boosie was dealing with. Some even said Boosie probably wasn't thinking about any claim from months ago when his whole life was shifting around him. They argued he wouldn't be worried about someone online retelling a story while he was fighting through legal battles and trying to keep his family steady. But despite all the noise, the story still carried a dramatic twist. Two men from different worlds crossing paths because of one technical issue tied to a concert deal that fell apart. People said things might have gone smoother if communication had been better. But once everything collided that night, the situation became much bigger than anyone expected. The whole situation started because OG Gumby was promoting a concert, and Boosie ended up stuck right in the middle of it after his brother handled business the wrong way. Gumby said none of this would have happened if the financial side had been handled correctly. But once the money disappeared, all roads pointed straight back to the family member Boosie trusted. Gumby wasn't just dealing with a promoter issue. He was dealing with a man whose reputation in the streets carried real weight. OG Gumby was known long before this story went public. As a Hoover 9 Deuce figure, his name had already traveled through California's prison system, especially after everything he lived through. People described him as someone who didn't look for trouble but didn't run from it either. Gumby said, "I'm not a killer, but don't push me." And people took him seriously because of his past inside some of the hardest yards in the state. He had been in the C yard at California's Calipatria State Prison during some of the most violent years. His tattoos, the Get Old star on his shoulder and 9 Deuce across his stomach, let people know exactly where he stood. Inside that prison environment, everyone knew that crossing Gumby was risky because he wasn't someone who backed down when threatened. Gumby always said he wasn't the type to start fights, yet his criminal history and the cases tied to his youth followed him everywhere he went. He had been charged with homicide at 18 and spent years in the law library trying to study his own case and survive the environment around him. In a place known as Killer Patra, where reputation could decide your fate, Gumby stood out as someone who didn't rely on intimidation but wasn't afraid of pressure. Things shifted when he crossed paths with Eddie Clark, better known as the Devil, a man whose name carried its own fear. Clark had spent most of his life behind bars and had a reputation for extreme violence. To be marked by Clark meant facing danger or being forced into a position of servitude behind the walls. When Gumby refused a gang order, Clark stabbed him twice and whispered a disturbing threat in his ear saying, "You are now my bitch in the C yard." That moment sparked a shift inside Gumby, turning him into someone who refused to be controlled, shaping the man he later became and the intensity he brought into every conflict he faced later in life. Inside the prison yard, inmates were always patted down before heading back to their cells, and guards expected to find hidden weapons tucked in shoes, taped under clothing, or slid into quiet corners. It was a normal part of daily life behind those walls. According to the official report, OG Gumby, known then as Reggie Cole, went back to a spot where he previously hid a small makeshift blade, something he had crafted earlier in the yard. Cole had just been attacked, and the threat whispered in his ear pushed him into a corner mentally. He believed if he didn't stand up for himself, he would be marked in a way no inmate wanted. So in his mind, he felt forced to reclaim his respect before things escalated further. The pressure of prison politics didn't leave much room for hesitation. Court documents described how a guard began patting down the man known as the Devil, a large and intimidating inmate with a long history in the system. The guard had no idea what had happened moments earlier, and to him, it was just another routine search. The Devil stood with his arms outstretched, showing tattoos that reflected the violent world he had lived in for years, including the image of a hand gripping a sword. A few feet away, Cole held a small blade fashioned from metal and a melted wrapper, the kind of improvised weapon inmates made when they felt they had no other choice. It wasn't something he grabbed out of anger. It was something he believed he needed for survival in an environment where reputation controlled everything. As the guard leaned down during the search, Cole stepped forward and struck quickly, targeting the Devil before the situation could turn against him again. The move shocked everyone around because the yard had been calm just seconds earlier. Guards who had never witnessed an attack like that froze for a moment before shouting commands and demanding everyone get down on the ground. Cole immediately dropped and laid on his stomach, telling the guards, "I already know what I did." He didn't resist or attempt to flee. He accepted the consequences on the spot. The devil collapsed nearby while medical help raced over, but the damage had already been done by the time staff reached him. Before this incident, Cole had been serving life without parole for a separate case from the early 1990s, and now the prison system viewed this new event as another major charge, one that pushed his situation into even more dangerous legal territory. Reggie OG Gumby Cole's trial in Imperial County was expected to be quick and straightforward, since on paper, the new charge looked undeniable. But as the hearings continued, his attorney started noticing gaps that raised serious doubts about the original case that first put Cole behind bars. The more the lawyers studied the files, the clearer it became that something was deeply wrong with the first conviction. There was no physical evidence connecting Cole to the original crime, and the police investigation showed problems from the beginning. That created a difficult question. If the state placed Cole in prison by mistake, how much responsibility did he carry for the violence that happened afterward while he was trapped inside that environment? The case shifted from simple courtroom procedure into something far more complicated. A reinvestigation eventually uncovered persuasive scientific evidence. Forensic reports showed the victim, Angelus, was struck from above and not on a street level like the witness John Jones originally claimed he saw. That alone contradicted the story that tied Cole and Anthony to the scene. No fingerprints matched Cole, no DNA placed him there, and the eyewitness testimony fell apart once John Jones officially retracted his statement. Without his claim, the prosecution had nothing reliable that identified Cole as the attacker. Other witnesses were unable to point him out, leaving the entire foundation of the case unstable. Everything came to a turning point in February 2008, after Cole had already spent around 14 years behind bars. The judge reviewed the evidence and ruled that Cole had been wrongfully convicted of the murder of Angelus. In the same courtroom where he previously faced a potential death sentence for a later incident, he was now found innocent of the case that originally put him in prison. It was a moment so rare that seasoned legal professionals said they might never witness something like it again. Cole's wrongful conviction led to a major settlement. He was awarded $5.2 million from the city of Los Angeles for being imprisoned for a crime the court determined he did not commit. That compensation marked a dramatic shift in his story, especially after everything he endured during those years behind bars. Meanwhile, Boosie himself carried a heavy history from his own past, including well-known stories about the dangers he faced and survived throughout his career. Those experiences shaped how the public viewed his situation, especially as news of OG Gumby's background came back into the spotlight. Talk around the street started buzzing again when people brought up Boosie's past circle and the names tied to him back in the day. Folks mentioned Yo Bowie, Who's Next, Boss Man, talking about how Boosie used to move, who he kept close, and how he was known for calling his own shots. Even though nothing was ever confirmed, people still whispered about Marlo Mike, who remains locked up serving time for those alleged situations that once made headlines. Even with all that noise around his name, one thing people kept repeating was that Boosie never backed down from pressure. The moment OG Gumby confronted him in that green room full of Hoovers, Boosie didn't fold or run. He stood there and took the heat while trying to figure out what really happened with his brother. Gumby himself admitted Boosie didn't panic, which surprised many considering the weight of the moment. Now fast forward and Boosie is still showing the same attitude as he deals with his current situation. He said loud and clear that he isn't worried about anything, and he keeps moving with confidence even though he has to turn himself in soon. Instead of hiding or laying low, he's been taking trips, touching different cities, and showing he isn't letting fear take over his mind. People noticed he went to Miami right before his turn-in date on November 21st, moving like a man who wants to enjoy whatever time he has left before stepping into the next chapter. Some fans said it looked like he was trying to clear his head, while others said it showed he wasn't letting the situation break his spirit at all. Boosie kept posting like everything was normal, laughing, traveling, and living life as usual. That confidence made some people wonder if he knew something about his case that the public didn't, just like when he said, "I'm not worried about nothing," even though everyone assumed his fate was already sealed. Whether people agreed with him or not, one thing couldn't be denied. Boosie was moving with the same energy he always had, refusing to show any sign of fear before November 21st arrived. Even with legal trouble, family issues, and public drama swirling around him, he kept handling his days like someone determined not to let the situation control him. To some, that confidence looked bold. And to others, it looked like a man trying to stay strong until the very last moment. When you look at everything that happened, the concerts, the missing money, the confrontations, the interviews, the courtroom twists, the street tension, and two men whose paths were never supposed to cross, you realize this wasn't just a business dispute, this was a full collision between two completely different worlds. And somehow, both of them walked straight into it like fate had already written the script. OG Gumby came with decades of history behind him, a story shaped by prison yards, survival, and a fight to clear his own name. Boosie came with fame, pressure, and family trouble he never saw coming. And once his brother's actions surfaced, his whole situation flipped overnight. Every step of this saga showed how fast things can change when hidden business gets exposed in the wrong room at the wrong time. Even now, nothing is fully closed. Gumby still says the debt isn't handled. Boosie is still facing his own timeline. And the internet is split between those who think it'll fade away and those who believe this story is far from finished. One man is chasing answers, the other is dealing with a storm around him, and the tension between their worlds still hangs in the air like a chapter waiting to be reopened. But that's exactly why stories like this shake the culture, because they're real. Real money, real pressure, real consequences, and real people trying to stand tall through it all. And when the truth hits the streets, everybody watches to see which direction the story moves next. If you want the next update, the next twist, the next piece nobody else has, hit that subscribe, turn on the alerts, and stay locked in with BarzBuzz, where every hidden detail, every street angle, and every industry secret gets brought to light. Because this saga, this isn't just entertainment, this is the kind of story only BarzBuzz breaks down the right way. If this saga had you shook, wait till you see what's next. You already know what it is. BarzBuzz got the real, raw, and unfiltered breakdowns. So don't forget to like and subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to catch up.